Hey guys, it's Libby, and today I'm doing a wrap up for May and also the first half of June. You may have noticed that I haven't been around so much the past 2 weeks. That's because I got really sick. I got like double dip sick. I had pharyngitis, and then just as that was getting better, I got a sinus infection, and there was lots of coughing. It was no fun. And sometimes you get sick and it's kind of like fun. Cuddle up in bed with tea and a good book and you get a bunch of reading done, and then sometimes you're sick and you just like lie in bed and cannot even contemplate taking any sort of action. And that's the kind that I had. So I didn't read that much in the beginning of June, and I definitely was not going to be able to film any videos. So I'm now recovered, and I'm going to do a wrap-up of the last 6 weeks. So what I'm probably going to do for my next wrap-up, I'm not going to do one at the end of June to just cover 2 weeks. I'll probably do one at the end of July and cover the second half of June and July. But let's get on to the books. So in the past period of time, I have read 2 novels, listened to 1 audiobook, read 1 collection of poetry and short stories, 1 play, and I also DNF'd a book. The audiobook that I finished is one that I also have in physical copy, and that is Frenchman's Creek by Daphne du Maurier. One of my goals for this year is to read a bunch more Daphne du Maurier because my favorite book of all time, Rebecca, is written by her, and another one that I quite like, My Cousin Rachel, is also by her. Those are the only 2 of her novels that I've read, and she's written like 20 or something huge like that, so I thought I should get to some more. This one was not that great. It was fine. It's set in Cornwall. I believe all Daphne du Maurier books are required to take place in Cornwall. It seems like a whole lot of them do. So this is set in the first half of the 18th century. It's about a woman named Donna St. Colombe. She and her husband and 2 children are currently living in London. They've been living in their London house for the past couple of years, although they do have a posh country estate out in Cornwall called Navron. And Donna is about to turn 30. She's dealing with a lot of things right now. She pulled a prank on this lady that she now feels really bad about. She like casually kissed this guy one time, and now he thinks that they're like lovers and he's not leaving her alone, and her husband knows about this, but he's not even mad. He's just whatever. And Donna is sick of it all. So she, on a whim, packs up her children and rides back home. And in their absence, the house has not been as well taken care of as might be expected. There's currently only 1 servant there named William that like nobody remembers, and he talks with a funny accent. Donna finds in her bedside table things that do not belong to her, and her neighbors are telling her about this horrid French pirate who is raping the women and stealing their sheep and whatever it is that pirates do. Donna then manages to get abducted by these pirates and the dreamy pirate captain, and romance ensues. And unfortunately, so does a plot to capture this French pirate and see him hanged. I'm not really into the romance novels, so like this, you know, we weren't even starting off on very strong footing. I also found it kind of predictable and blah, and very, very much romanticized. Daphne du Maurier is very good at creating an atmosphere, and I did enjoy the sort of descriptions of the setting, but I'm also just happy to read Rebecca over and over again to get that. So this is probably not going to be a reread for me. I did give it 3 stars. Then I DNF'd the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I have left my bookmark in it. I got to page 136. So I really did make a proper effort. This was for the BookTube SFF Awards. And it seems like a bunch of other people had the same problems with it that I had, but they said that the ending is really good and pays off. So that's why I've left the bookmark in here, because I might pick it up and try to continue at a later date after I've forgotten all of the things that I hate about this. I do question whether I will like the ending as much as some people do, because apparently our 3 narratives, all sort of the characters from them weave together in interesting ways, but I don't really like any of the characters, so I kind of don't think that I will care, but we'll see. Maybe. maybe. Then I impulse read The Honey Month by Amal El-Motar. I heard Rachel from Kalanati talk about this in one of her wrap-ups, and I was like, I want that. I want to read that. The inspiration for this collection is that Amal's friend sent her a set of 30 or 28 samples of different types of honey, and so every day she would eat a sample and then write a short story or a piece of poetry about a poem, Libby, good job, that was inspired by the name and the taste of the honey. And I thought this sounded really cool, so I immediately got the ebook for Kindle. And I will tell you that the first 2 days were amazing, crazy, good, oh my god, mind is blown. Everything after that was fine. It was good. The first 2 works I give easily 5 stars. Everything else is ranging between a 3 and a 4. I thought that the first one did a really good job of capturing what it's like to have a dream and then want to stick with that. Like, no, wait, crap, why did I wake up? Can I just keep dreaming that dream? And then it sort of ruins the rest of your day. And then the second piece was a poem about peach creamed honey, which is non-trivially vaginal. It's immaculately done, though. She actually read that for something, and it's on YouTube, so I will leave a link to her reading the poem down below. And then the next thing that I finished, the backstory is that for our anniversary on May 24th, David and I filmed like a 3-hour video about Shakespeare's play Richard III and the Ian McKellen adaptation of that. That will go up as soon as I'm finished editing it, which is gonna take like decades because it's 3 hours long and you guys don't want to watch that. And so after filming this video, I had the incredible urge to read Coriolanus. This is another Shakespeare play, and it's kind of in conversation with Richard III. It's about a leader who is unpopular in many ways. I think that I have talked about Coriolanus before on this channel. It's one of the Shakespeare plays that I reread with moderate frequency. It's not one of my like top 5, which I reread basically every year. But I do swing around to it occasionally, so I'm not going to talk that much about it. Basically, it's set in Republican Rome before the emperors, and Coriolanus is a great military leader, and then he sort of attempts, somewhat through his own will and desire for power, but also somewhat through the pressure of his friends, to become a political leader as well as a military leader, and he is just really not cut out for that because he does not like poor people. He literally calls them smelly, and he does not want anything to do with them. And, you know, when you're in a republic, if you're in the government, you're kind of representing the people. And it just, there's conflict there. I will say that I really do not like the character of Coriolanus. I think he is a jerk. You are not allowed to call poor people smelly. You're probably smelly too. I am totally on the Tribune's side. And in all the adaptations I've seen, the Tribunes are portrayed as like super evil and shady, and I hate it. I'm gonna produce my own production of Coriolanus, and I'll be nicer to the Tribunes. I give this play like a 3.5, edging into the 4. I find it so hard to rate Shakespeare because, you know, even crap Shakespeare is better than like crap at anything else. The next book that I read was The Gargoyle. You may remember when I hauled this book a couple of months ago, I believe I said, I'm not getting this book because I think it will be good. I'm getting this book because I think it will be crazy. It did kind of let me down. Like, it was not secretly a gem. There were things that I liked about it, but there were things that I did not. So, plot synopsis. First off, let me say, in this edition that I have, which has sort of burned paper and the carving of an angelic looking face, and then this back, the back cover text is acceptable and you can read it. But there is another edition which has a naked back with angel wing tattoos on it, where the back cover text like spoils things that happen like 4/5 of the way into the book. And so don't read the back cover description of that. It will, because I had read it, because that's, I think, the one that, the main one that's linked on Goodreads. And so I was just sort of spending most of the story waiting for certain things to happen, and that didn't enhance my enjoyment of it, certainly. So this is about a nameless main character. I was about to say who is named, because that's what I normally say for characters, but then I realized that he does not have one. It opens with him drinking and driving and getting into a massive car crash. Don't drink and drive, children. Or adults. Also, children shouldn't be driving anyway, or drinking. Adults, don't do both of them at the same time. You can do them each separately, though. And in this car crash, he gets severely burned and has to spend several months in a burn unit. And there's another patient who's in the psych ward who sort of comes and bothers him sometimes, who believes that she was born in the year 1300 in Germany and that they were lovers, and he is the reincarnation of her dead lover, and she's kind of weird about it. So this woman, Marianne, tells him the story of their past lives, one life together, and also stories of other great loves. There's one in Japan, there's one in Italy, there's one in Victorian England, and there's one in Viking Iceland, which had gay Vikings and was literally the greatest. Who does not want gay Vikings? Everybody wants gay Vikings. I like that part. Those are actually kind of standalone stories, and if you wanted to read them, just like grab this book from the library and just read a couple of short stories, I think that's a valid approach to this book. I'll just tell you the chapters that they occur in. So the Italian one is all of chapter 6. The Victorian one is chapter 10. The Japan one is it's Roman numeral 17. And then the Viking one is 21. I think the Viking one and the Japanese one are, like, those two on their own are 5 stars. They're really good. The Italian one I did like, but it didn't really fit in with the other ones as well as I thought it might. And then the Victorian one was fine and kind of predictable. The fact that I just read Frenchman Creek was probably not helping me with that, because it also involves staring out at the water and boats and romance. But back to the main part of the story. So the beginning, it was just bad. The writing was bad. The writing was not well thought out. There were a lot of problems. I would also like to mention that there is a fair bit of gross medical stuff going on in here. I was fine for most of it. You do hear a lot about what happens when you have third-degree burns over most of your body in a burn unit, and bad things happen to skin. So if you don't want to read about that, don't read this book. Also, some pretty unfun things happen to bodies in the medieval sections. There was only one part of this book that I was just like, nope, can't read that. Ew, no thank you. And that was in the very first chapter, when he's in his car, which is burning up. He tells you, like, he does it via analogy, and I didn't even read it, so it's hard to describe this. But he says, like, imagine, if you will, putting your hand on a burner and leaving it there for 60 seconds. Now imagine doing that with your face. Leave it there for 60 seconds. And then there's, like, paragraphs describing about what that feels like. And he's like, that's what it feels like to be in a burning car. And I was like, I don't want to know that. The first really faulty thing that we run into in just the storytelling is after we get all of the information about the car crash and the inferno within, there's a page break, and then he says, the whole thing is in first person. I have no idea whether beginning with my accident was the best decision, as I've never written a book before. Truth be told, I started with the crash because I wanted to catch your interest and drag you into the story. you're still reading, so it seems to have worked. I'm still reading, but I am hate reading at this point. And the tone of like the first third when he's in the burn unit is very erratic. Occasionally you'll get, you know, a normally written sentence or paragraph, but most of the time it's written for shock value to gross you out, and then alternating with like really deep philosophical thoughts. And I was like, what is this? That does mellow out as his injuries heal. And then the end, I just found sort of blah. I mean, I can't come up with a better way to end this, but I am not a published author, so that's not my thing. That's your thing, Andrew Davidson. You're supposed to come up with the wowza ending. And it was actually kind of getting good, right, leading up to it, like sort of not the last 50 pages, but the 70 pages before that. I was on board. One thing that I did find interesting in this book was the story that Marianne is telling of their past life in medieval Germany. Marianne is a nun, and there's a lot of exploration of Christian mysticism that was going on. I know a little bit about this, mainly from watching Ask a Mortician, who has some very cool videos about the Middle Ages were crazy. And also I helped narrate Dante's Purgatorio and Paradiso. Audible links below if you want to listen to me read horrific things to you. So if like 14th century religious discourse really is what you're into, you might want to look into this. I don't know how many people that is. I'm guessing it's fairly small. I honestly have no idea how to rate this book. I did like get a fair bit of enjoyment out of it, but again, a lot of that was from hate reading. And the stories within the story and the beginning of the actual story and the end of the actual story are so divergent in how I felt about them and what they're trying to do, that I don't know. I mean, I could just pick up 3 stars and plop it right in the middle, but I'm really not sure what number to assign to this. And that's the first time I've really felt this about a book. Like, what do I even think about this? And the last book that I read was Carpe Jugulum by Terry Pratchett. This is the last book in the Witches series, which means it's going to be a new video in my Guide to Discworld video series. So I'm not going to talk about this too much. This is about new and improved vampires who are attempting to take over Lancre and how the witches of Lancre deal with this. This is the very first Terry Pratchett book that I ever read, which means I totally did not get the Esmeralda joke at all. To give like the microest of spoilers, there is a baby who is named Esmeralda in honor of Granny Weatherwax, whose first name is Esmeralda, but they don't tell you that her first name is Esmeralda in this book. You have to have gleaned that from other books. And also, in my family, we're weird. The parents do not reveal the name of their unborn child for quite a while. Sometimes up until the baby is actually born, or a month or two before. And so the girls all get called Esmeralda, which is called generic unborn female baby Esmeralda. And I was like, wait, I thought that was just my family being weird, but is that a thing? My cat's freaking out, I'm sorry. There's a crow that she wants to murder. But what I particularly noticed about this book, and now I'm sort of wondering if this was happening in the previous books as well, is that it was not that funny. This one isn't super funny. There's almost no like situational humor. There's a couple of sort of one-line zingers that Pratchett always manages to get in there, especially with Nanny Ogg. If anyone can turn it into a sex joke, Nanny Ogg can. But it was a lot more sort of thoughtful and philosophical, and Terry Pratchett is just a genius. I also found myself liking Granny Weatherwax more than I had in Masquerade and Lords and Ladies. She was sort of starting to become a bully, I don't know if she just like respects Agnes more than she respects Magrat, or if it's that she's not interacting with the other witches as much as she does in the other books. But she seemed a bit more vulnerable and her actions seemed more justified outside of just ego. So I did really enjoy this and I gave it 5 stars. So moving on to what I am currently reading, I have The House on the Strand by Daphne du Maurier. This is about a man who gets addicted to time traveling to the 14th century, and the time travel is done via potion that you ingest, and when you're in the 14th century, you cannot touch anything. Excuse me. So if you touch an inanimate object, you just don't feel it, and that's weird. And if you touch an animate object, then you are zinged back into like the 40s or 30s or 50s, whenever contemporary is for this book. I've really only just started it. I'm on page 19, so I have yet to form any opinions. And then I just don't want to talk about my TBR schedule, the list of books that I want to get through this year, because I'm way behind and I don't want to think about that. But I think it's safe to say that the next book I will be reading is The We Free Men by Terry Pratchett. This is the first book in the Tiffany Aching series, which is the spin-off of the Witches series, and Granny Weatherwax is a key character in this, so it's good that I've started liking her again. And then since Costume College, which is a big, which is a big costuming convention that I go to, is coming up at the end of July, I kind of have to buckle down and sew some things. So I suspect a lot of audiobooks will be consumed in the coming weeks. I will probably do another Daphne du Maurier on audiobook, currently planning Jamaica Inn, although I would really like to re-listen to My Cousin Rachel. And I would also like to consume some classic 18th century Gothic fiction. I'm a big fan of Gothic in, I was about to say all of its incarnations, but most of its incarnations from the 19th, 20th, and 21st century, and I've only read one book from the 18th century before. It was, don't even remember the name, it was just a woman's name, like Prunella or Priscilla or, God, I'm gonna look. Pamela, there we go, and it was awful. So I've been kind of hesitant to dip back into the 18th century. But I'm thinking of listening to an audiobook of The Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. This is generally identified as the first Gothic novel. It's also really short. The audiobook is like 4 to 6 hours, whereas like The Monk and The Italian and The Mysteries of Udolpho are all like 30-hour audiobooks, so if I don't like Castle of Otranto, at least it is short. And then I would also like to give Elizabeth Gaskell another try. I've listened to 2 of her sort of short story / short novel. She wrote a lot of sort of 100-page things, and I'm not quite sure how to classify them. But I've read The Grey Woman and My Cousin Phyllis, Our Cousin Phyllis, Cousin Phyllis, that one. And I was distinctly underwhelmed. I have seen the BBC adaptations of Wives and Daughters and North and South, and I really enjoyed those. So hopefully I will like the books. So if you have read either Wives and Daughters or North and South, let me know what you thought of them. Let me know which one you prefer. I know Wives and Daughters is really long. I think North and South is more reasonable. But if you've also read some of her novellas, I guess we'll call them, and you found them to be similar to her long novels, let me know, and maybe I'll just live in disappointment. She was friends with Charlotte Bronte, and I like Charlotte Bronte, so I feel like I should like her. So that's the plan. I will see you in 6 weeks with another wrap-up, and also with other videos in between, hopefully.